Ethernet and networking speeds as 500 megabits per second gigabit? I am quite confused with networking and speeds and such. I want to buy something, so it's throwing Google off. If I type in the keywords, I just get websites selling the products I want, not information about them. Sometimes Google's too good for its own good. The product. So, I want to get a mains Ethernet power adapter like this one. Amazon product page, TP-Link TL-PA 511 kit 500 megabits per second gigabit powerline adapter, twin pack. TP-Link product page, AV 500 gigabit powerline adapter starter kit, TL-PA 511 kit. HomePlug AV standard compliant, high-speed data transfer rate of up to 500 megabits per second, ideal for HD video or 3D video streaming and online gaming. Mains filter for better powerline communication performance. No new wires, use existing electrical wiring up to 300 meter range over a home's electrical circuit for better performance through walls or across floors. Plug and play. No new wires or configuration required. Patented power saving mode automatically reduces power consumption by up to 85%. 128-bit AES encryption ensures that the network is safe simply by pressing a button on paired device. Built-in QoS assures the quality of bandwidth-sensitive applications such as voice, video, and online games. Supports IGT managed multicast IP transmission, optimizes IP streaming. My question. It is referred as an 500 megabits per second gigabit powerline adapter. What does this mean? In my head, if it's 500 megabits per second, then it's not gigabit? Surely a gigabit is 1000 megabits per second. There is another, slightly cheaper model, which is 500 megabits per second, but is not gigabit. Well, what difference does this make? What's the point in getting a gigabit one, when I'm only going to get speeds of 500 megabits per second anyway? Also, what does 10/100, 10/100/1000, 100/1000 mean in relation to these? That's the Ethernet description or specification, but it doesn't mean anything to me. It's a bit cheeky describing it as gigabit, but I think the gist of it is that the network port runs at 1 Gbps, but it can only send half that over the power lines. The one that doesn't mention gigabit only has a fast Ethernet port for 100 megabits per second, so you wouldn't get the performance of 500 megabits per second unless you were using more adapters. I think the 500 MPBs is split amongst all the powerline adapters you have.
From the TP-Link product spec. It has a gigabit Ethernet port. That's where you connect your PC/laptop/whatever device, and it can transmit 500 megabits per second over powerline. As for 10/100 and the rest, as you said, it's related to Ethernet standards, but in simple terms just tell you speed a device can operate. 10/100 mean either 10 megabits per second or 100 megabits per second. 10/100/1000, 10 megabits per second or 100 megabits per second or 1000 megabits per second, etc. Now, when you connect two devices, they will operate at highest common speed. One is 100, one is 1000, operate at 100. If they do not support such, say one is set to only allow 10 megabits per second and other only 1000 megabits per second, they will fail to communicate. Going back to your question, it's similar logic here. 1G/500M plug will limit you to max 500M, but 100M/500M, non-gigabit one, will be max 100M as that's lowest speed along the transmission path. If the price difference is small, it makes sense to go for gigabit one, unless you know that none of your devices will ever support gigabit. Edit, I have not used those devices, but just Googled a bit and it looks those high speeds, over power, are a bit, overinflated. So if you have a chance, it would be best to actually try both and see what actual speed you get.
Each of the standard Ethernet speeds, 10-bit/SEC, 100-bit/SEC, aka Fast Ethernet, and 1000-bit/SEC, aka Gigabit Ethernet, have different signaling and negotiation methods. So maybe this adapter supports the Gigabit Ethernet signaling standard but just can't do the full 1000-bit/SEC over the link layer. Guess it's possible, e.g. a Fast Ethernet interface to actually operate faster than 100-bit/SEC but still use Fast Ethernet signaling/negotiation. However, a gigabit interface connected to it would negotiate down to Fast Ethernet, and still transmit at that maximum speed, so I don't know what is going on with that. It's entirely possible the specs are incorrect or written by non-knowledgeable people. One advantage Gigabit Ethernet has, even if you aren't getting a full 1000-bit/SEC, is jumbo frames, which increase LAN, not internet, of course, speed by allowing bigger Ethernet frames. 8,000 bytes instead of 1,500 bytes, which can mean a higher MTU, which means reduced packet header overhead. The specification states that the device supports IEEE 802.3ab, which means that the Ethernet ports do support Gigabit Ethernet. The powerline transceivers, however, have a maximum rating of 500 megabits per second in each direction, assuming full duplex. The actual total throughput will depend on a lot of factors, such as length of electrical cabling between powerline devices, whether or not the powerline devices are on different circuits, and if there are any circuit breakers between the devices, age of electrical cabling, interference/noise from other electrical equipment, the speed of other networking equipment. Note that the so-called 200 megabits per second powerline devices often have 100 Mbps Ethernet ports and are therefore limited to 100 megabits per second in each direction, which could sneakily be called 200 Mbps in half duplex. This would also be the case for the non-gigabit version you refer to.
If you watch this aborted panel, please consider watching and subscribing.